Good morning, students. I am Dr. Divya. So, here today's topic is monocycle disease and polycyclic disease. So, first example of monocyclic disease are black leg of potato. Causes like Irvinia keratovora, and second verticillium wilt and cereal cyst nematode. So, polycycle like means multiple cycle. So most pathogens go through more than one disease cycle in a growing season are referred to as a polycyclic. So only a small number of sexual spore or other hardy structures survive as a primary inoculum that cause initially infections. So one infection takes place, large number of asexual spores are produced as a secondary inoculum at each infection site. So these spores can produce new, like secondary infections that produce more asexual spores and so on. So with each cycle, the amount of inoculum is multiplied manifold. So here is graphical representation. This type of a population growth is represented as a sigmoid curve. So rate of increase of disease over time can be represented by a compound entrance function. So many of these pathogens disseminated primarily by air or airborne vector, they are responsible for most of the explosive epidemics in most crops. For example of polycyclic disease like downy mildew, powdery mildew, late blight of potato, leaf spot, blights, green rust, aphid bone virus, root knot nematode. So third, polytic. Some pathogen take several years before inoculum they produce can be disseminated and initiate new functions. So may not cause many new infections over a given area in a year. Amount of inoculum does not increase greatly within a year. So however, because they survive in perennial host, they have almost as much inoculum they had at the end of the previous year. So inoculum may increase steadily exponential from year to year, can cause severe outbreak when considered over several years. So example of polytic disease, some disease of trees, for example, Dutch elm disease, citrus tristeza, fungal vascular wilts, mycoplasmal yellows, viral infections. So ecology of the pathogen. So presence of inoculum in the host, vascular fungi reproduce inside of the host and vector transmitted cause epidemic. Soil-borne pathogen produce inoculum on the infected field. And mode of spread of the pathogen, wind, water, soil, seed, insect, human, machinery used in agriculture. Environmental factors, first temperature, host effect, high temperature break the host resistance, especially horizontal resistance. Pathogen effect, high temperature increases the growth of pathogen but low temperature reduce the amount of inoculum, also reduce the movement of vectors. Environmental factor, so activate resting stages, affect germination of spore and penetration into host. For example, soil-borne pathogen produce inoculum on the infected field, water on leaves, humidity, splashing water distributes inoculum, leaf wetness, best indicator but difficult to measure. Moisture. Effect of foliage density on development of Phytophthora infestans during a period of partly favorable weather like May, June, or very favorable weather like November, December. So human factors, so site selection and preparation, poor drainage, low land infected field, selections of propagating materials using pathogen-free treating planting materials reduces disease. Cultural practices like monoculture, high level of nitrogenous fertilizer, dense planting, overhead irrigations, poor sanitation, and creation injury in plant. So disease control, cultural, biological, chemical, and reduces the epidemics. So disease development is also affected by time factor like season of the year, duration and frequency of favorable temperature and rains, appearance of vectors, for example. So implications for disease management strategies. So monocycle disease reduce the amount of primary inoculum like affect the efficiency of invasion by the primary inoculum. Polycyclic disease like reducing the amount of primary inoculum has less impact, reducing the rate of increase of the pathogen more beneficial. So these are the purposes of disease management is to prevent disease from exceeding some level where profit or yield is significantly diminished. So principle of epidemiology indicates the control measure can do this is only two ways. First one, they may reduce disease at the beginning of the season. They may decrease the rate of disease development during the growing period. So ways to reduce disease at a beginning level. First is fumigation, certified seed, sanitation and seed treatments, quarantine, host plant resistance. And the second way to decrease the rate of the disease development in infection rate, like to change the environment, fertilizer application, and the host plant resistance. Ways to change temperature, harvest early before disease becomes severe, plant early like cereal cyst nematodes. So patterns of epidemics, interactions among the elements of epidemics as the influence of time by factor of the environment by human interference are expressed in pattern and rates. This is progressive curve like saturation type of curve, sigmoidal curve, the polycyclic disease such as late blight of a potato, bimodal curve, like polycyclic disease such as the apple scab in which the blossom and the fruit are infected at different separate time. Saturation type of curve, three monocycle disease of different epidemic rates. So disease gradient curve. So disease gradient curve, the percentage of disease and the scale for distance vary with the type of pathogen, its methods of dispersal. So being small for soil-borne pathogen of vector and large for airborne pathogen. So the progress of an epidemic measured in terms of changes in the number of lesions, the amount of diseased tissue, and the number of diseased plant it spread over distance is called disease gradient curve. Spatial pattern. These are the comparison of a disease cycle, fungi, bacteria, virus, and nematode. These are the survival of the crop, residue, soil, alternate host, dispersal by wind, rain, insect, infectious directly wound insect in feeding to the fungi pathogen. And the alternate host, insect, wind, rain, that infections caused by bacteria.